afternoon as we're trying to cover this rain event for you all at home. He got some new numbers from the Sewage and Water Board just a few moments ago, and these numbers are staggering. In Mid-City, 5.61 inches of rain clocked by the Sewage and Water Board at the pumping station there. In Gentilly, 4.23 inches of rain this afternoon. In City Park, the largest amount, 7.33 inches of rain. Lakeview, 5.3 inches of rain, 5.3 in the other pump station in Lakeview. So we did see a tremendous amount of rain in a very short period of time for our pumping system. And then one of the people who has really kept tabs on the Sewage and Water Board, as we have seen significant reforms in recent years, is New Orleans City Council member Joe Giarrusso. And Meg Ferris has been speaking with him this afternoon. She's joining us live in one of those areas where we just talked about how much rain they've gotten this afternoon. It is a tremendous amount, Meg.
That's right, Katie. We're around Argonne and Chappelle in that area, and our car couldn't even make it to where Councilman Joe Giarrusso was. But he's joining us now live to discuss all those totals that you were just talking about. So everyone always wants to know, are the pumps on?
Well, Sewage and Water Board says the pumps are on. Meg, what I always tell people is, I tell people what Sewage and Water Board tells me and then wait till afterwards to see what happened. Of course, part of the issue today is the pumps tripped offline. That means they shut down for a period now near the interstate. That means, of course, pumps aren't working, things aren't happening, so that's probably what contributed to the interstate traffic earlier. But you can just look right around you right now. There's so much water here in the streets.
Okay, I get it that we had these 7.33 and 5 point whatever. I get that the pumps can only do so much. What is it, 2 inches the first hour and then another inch every hour after that? But we definitely don't have a chance when the pumps trip off. So why are pumps even tripping off in the first place? Aren't they supposed to withstand the bad weather? That's what we have them. That's what we pay taxes for.
Yeah, I can't answer the question about why they happened. I don't know if it was an electrical problem, if there's operator error. We'll have to find that out the next couple of days when we get the report. But you're absolutely right. Every part of the system, particularly with this heavier rain, has to work. The drainage has to work at the front end of the system. The pipes have to be clean, and the pumps have to be working too.
Mm-hmm. And we're getting ready to show I-10 closed. A lot of people were stranded. Now, does Labor Day have anything to do with how many people were on duty? Do you know that yet, Councilman, or is that something you need to look into?
It's still something I need to look into. I mean, obviously, with the bad weather, everybody knows it's happening. My hope is Sewage and Water Board has a plan for that, irrespective of its Labor Day. But look, people in Lakeview have been burned in the past by not having operators on site. We always get the emails, Meg, I don't believe the pumps are on, even if Sewage and Water Board is saying it. So it's always important to know what happens after the fact and try and make sure people know what's happening in real time.
I know I'm just hitting you with wanting some facts right away, and you need to look into this, but these two pumps have we had problems with them in the past? Is this chronic with those?
I don't remember those two being really ones we've had so much chronic issues with. The one that really has been the big problem has been DPS 12, which is at the end of the lake area here. That one has been an issue both during the big flood in 2017 and it was shut down during Ida. So look, anytime those pumps aren't working or you find out after the fact, there's a lot of skepticism, and particularly for people in the lakefront and mid-city who've had these issues, they're constantly going to feel that.
Now, we've had problems with pumps before, but we've also had problems with what supplies the turbines that supply electricity to them. Do we know in this case, did it have to do with pumps or did it have to do with turbines?
Well, right now they're saying all of the pumps, all the power that the turbine supplies are online and are working. And of course, we just had this conversation in council chambers with Sewage and Water Board. I don't want to be relying on these ancient turbines for forever, so it's really important for us to get them up and running before hurricane season 2025. But we're going to have to keep on being locked into them until that substation's online.
What else do you want to tell your constituents, or just talk about here that we need to know, or what you're going to be looking into?
Well, the other big thing too, Meg, is you just look around in this area, there's certain parts that seem to be higher and not as flooded as other. I literally was up to my knees walking here just to get to you all, so that shows you what the big difference is and just how the water is. So the drainage aspect of it is going to be a significant piece of this too. It's not just the pumps tripping offline, but if the catch basins aren't working properly, if the drainage lines aren't cleared properly, that's a problem too.
Councilman, do you know if this if they were prepared, that they knew this amount of rainfall was going to come, or did this catch them off guard? And if so, why?
I don't know the answer to that yet. I mean, my guess is nobody suspected that there was going to be 7.5, almost 8 inches of rain in this short a period of time. Obviously, as you started off by saying, that amount is something that's really hard to prepare for. But also, we're in the middle of hurricane season, and I know sometimes around holidays it's easy to get a little bit more lax in what's happening. But the big thing for us that's going to be important is after this to make sure what happened and have that analysis.
And what does that process look like? How does it start? What happens?
So Representative Hilferty a couple of years ago passed a bill that gives a letter report to all of us, usually within 48 hours of heavy raining like this. So we'll get a stormwater management report. It will show what the turbine's effectiveness was, what happens with all of the pumps, and what's going on. But Meg, one of the other things we've been talking about and Sewage and Water Board's talking about is having all that in real time so people can see it. Well, it used to be that way years ago. They took it offline about 4 or 5 years ago, and I think it'd be really helpful if people can see how their infrastructure is working at their own fingertips.
Yeah, we live in a bowl. You need pumps, and we need the pumps to get us the water out of the bowl, but if the pumps aren't on, there's no way, nothing's going to happen.
Everything has to work, and that's the big thing. You just said in the bowl, so it's every part of the system. You can't have like that gap in the bowl, so the drainage has to work on the front end, and then the power has to work to make sure everything's being pumped down correctly too.
So will this start with the city council is going to start calling the powers that be for the Sewage and Water Board, or when does that start tomorrow? How does that process?
So we get that report in 48 hours. So we were going to study that, see where that report says. I mean, the other thing is I've been asking for a drainage report since 2019 and heavily since Hurricane Ida. I mean, yeah, you're watching another truck roll down and get through all this weather right now. We want to know what happened so that way we make sure everything is operated properly as appropriate.
So yeah, 48 hours, and then once you have time to eyeball all of that, then do you start calling people or bringing them in front of the council to ask them questions?
The answer to that will be yes. I mean, particularly if there's problems with the system of what happened, obviously we'll talk to one another. This is my district, but it's a citywide issue. If it happens in Lakeview, it can happen in Broadmoor, Gentilly, New Orleans, East, anywhere else. And so we just want to make sure it gets solved for everybody as well as possible.
Okay, Councilman Joe Giarrusso, District A, thank you for literally waiting down in your boots where your boots didn't do much good because the water is way up on your jeans. So thank you so much.
My pleasure,
Okay,
Meg.
and we'll be following this story. Of course, we'll be following it, as the councilman said, in the council chambers. When those facts and figures come in, he said within 48 hours. We'll also be following this constantly on WWLTV.com, all of our platforms. Reporting live from Lakeview, back to you, Katie.